Welcome to The Show Off, the podcast where we make each other sit down, shut up, and watch episodes of our favorite TV shows and then explain, or be forced to listen to, why it's top-tier television. This show is for anyone who has ever wanted to go on endless tangents about their favorite shows, but their friends and family don't want to hear it. We get it. Ditch those losers and come hang out with us instead. I'm Amanda.
And I'm Kampy.
And this is The Show Off.
Previously on the Show Off podcast.
A young woman with a troubled past is drawn to a small town in Maine where fairy tales are to be believed. My pick for this inaugural episode of The Show Off. We're watching Once Upon a Time. We're watching the pilot of Once Upon a Time, and then we are going to be watching the season 1 finale. I'm super excited.
I have not seen a single episode of this show.
Yeah,
I know
which is great.
Nothing about it
I'm
other
so
than
excited.
It's Disney fairy tale.
Yeah, Disney fairy tales. Alrighty, hello everybody. Welcome to The Show Off.
Welcome back. Or welcome for the first time.
Yeah, or welcome for the first time. In case you missed our little intro episode from last time, you can go back and listen to that.
Go back and listen.
We just kind of explain what the show's about in that episode and introduce you to us and kind of set up the episode that we're doing today.
Mm-hmm. What are we doing today,
What
Amanda?
are we doing today? We are discussing the pilot and season 1 finale of ABC's Once Upon a Time.
Woohoo!
This is our first show off. I have forced Kampy to watch and take notes on this show. And I really didn't give you any kind of warning or anything about it,
not a lot of context.
except for the IMDb synopsis, which really doesn't tell you that much.
Right, and it's what I already knew about the show.
It's
just a homunculus of fairy tales.
Yeah, just a ginormous mashup of fairy tales, truly. We're going to get into it. So let's start off with, I want to start off with your overall impression of the show. Since it's your first time, I am well familiar with this show by now. I've seen this pilot probably 3 or 4 times at this point.
Okay, yeah.
I really like it. So what's your impression?
Yeah, right off the bat, this is something that I'm honestly kind of surprised I didn't watch it as it was coming out.
Dude, I know.
This is 100% what I would have been into at the time.
Yes, 2011.
Yes,
yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, we would have been like, for y'all's knowledge, we would have been 16-ish.
16, 17?
Yeah.
Yeah, 100% what I would have watched back in those days. I think now coming into it, being older and the show being older, it's definitely, there's certain things where I'm like, oh, that didn't age well. Mostly the CGI.
Oh, well, okay, sure. Whatever.
To be fair. But otherwise, no, I'm like, it holds up pretty good.
Yeah.
I don't have a lot of critique. I got a few comments.
Yeah.
But for the most part, overall, very positive.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a fun time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I love the show. And same exact reaction as you. Like, I cannot believe I did not watch this when it was airing. I remember, though, when it premiered and when they were, airing the promos and stuff for it. And my 16-year-old brain was like, that's dumb. So I was just stuck up about it.
Yeah, I think I probably was very anti-Disney in that era of my life.
We were like, we're angsty teenagers now.
Exactly.
We don't do Disney.
I listen to My Chemical Romance. I don't watch fairy tales.
Yeah. So I came to the show in 2018 when it was actually ending, when the last season was airing on television. And for whatever reason, I saw one of the promos on TV because I was watching something else. And for whatever reason, I thought, I'm going to check that out now. And I did. And boy, did I fall down the rabbit hole. I do also want to say real quick that this is your spoiler warning. This
whole podcast from here on out is nothing but spoilers.
It's nothing but spoilers for Once Upon a Time. So
you've been warned.
Let's dive into it. This pilot, just for some quick stats, aired October 23rd, 2011 for the fall television season on ABC Network. And it stars Jennifer Morrison as Emma Swan, Lana Parrilla as Regina Mills / the Evil Queen, Jennifer Goodwin as Snow White / Mary Margaret, and Josh... Oh, I always forget his name. Josh something. Dude, I know his name. What is it? As Charming. Dude, I know his name. No, it's
Sorry,
gone.
the face you
It's gone. Yeah, those are kind of our main characters. Oh, and Jared Gilmore as Henry Mills. Those are kind of our five mains. And yeah, as we jump into it here, I do want to say initially, this pilot covers ground.
Yeah.
Like, we do so much in 43 minutes.
It crams a lot
It
in.
moves.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's no joke.
That was one of my notes.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. We are literally bouncing around between different worlds, different characters, different versions of characters, the past, the present. It's all over the place, but it somehow manages to be very coherent. Yeah, which is really impressive. Okay, so our opening scene, we have this really awesome. Well, first of all, we have the opening crawl.
Well, okay, yeah.
What do you got?
But I was gonna say, then the epic shot.
Yes,
that gave
the
strong
epic shot.
Lord of the Ring vibes.
Yes, yeah, it's amazing. It's a really great opening shot. You immediately
Prince Charming riding in
Prince
on his
Charming
horse.
riding his horse,
Beautiful
his cape.
lake.
Yeah.
Magical mountains.
The mountains. I have no idea where they shot this.
I was trying to Google around to figure out where this everything else was shot in Canada, which I'm like, of course.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
But that shot, I was like, where is it?
Yeah.
Could not find it, sadly.
It could be in Canada. No, it's probably, I don't know. Canada has mountains. It could be Canada.
Because it was shot in Vancouver, which is up near the
Canadian
that
makes
Rockies,
sense.
so it is possible.
Yeah. I could see it. If any of y'all know, email us. theshowoffpod@gmail.com.
I'm really
I would love to know.
in filming locations.
Yeah,
guys.
right. But yeah, it does give strong Lord of the Rings vibes for sure. And yeah, we got some budget there right off the bat with that shot. And yeah, he swoops in to Snow White, and the dwarves are around her coffin, her glass coffin, which looks pretty cool, by the way. And you immediately know what story we're in without anyone having to say anything.
Okay, I have notes on this already.
Go for it.
Which is, I find it very curious that the central fairy tale that they're starting the show off with is Snow White.
Why?
I'm like, of all the fairy tales to pick, why would they pick Snow White?
She's the OG, isn't she?
Well, that's kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Like, not in terms of fairy tales themselves, because Grimm's brothers, Hans Christian Andersen, there's a huge body of work.
Yeah.
The reason I think they picked Snow White is that it's a homage to Disney kind of kicking it all off.
Yeah.
With the Snow White adaptation in, what was it, 1937?
Something like that.
Yeah, it's old. It's old, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that really being, like, it is culturally, like, the cornerstone of our understanding of fairy tales.
Yeah.
Is
in a big
Snow
way.
White. Yeah.
Yeah. In a Western context, for sure.
Yeah. So I think it makes sense that they would choose Snow White as the central fairy tale to jump off of.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, I mean, obviously it immediately gives you Snow White, Prince Charming, and the Evil Queen as like central characters. And I think it's a story that on the face of it was, you know, in Disney context was told very simplistically. And so then what they get to do with it here is tell a much more complex, interesting version of the story. And that's kind of what that's kind of the name of the game with the show, is like taking all these fairy tales and putting a twist on them.
Goes back to the conversation we always have about adaptations.
Yeah, buddy.
And how adaptations need to transform the original work that they're dealing with. And in this case, it's not just transforming. What is it? Is Grimm Snow White? I don't even know.
I don't know. I don't know where Snow White originally comes from.
But it's not even just taking that. It's taking the Disney version of that too, and continuing the adaptations along the way and making it something new.
100%. Yeah, and one other thing I want to point out about this scene, we're establishing a color scheme very quickly here, and this is one of my like favorite things to talk about in this show is the use of color, particularly in costumes, and using symbolism of color to show things about the characters and about what's going on. So obviously Snow White's wearing white, duh.
A lot of white.
But Charming's wearing red, and that immediately to me identifies red is the hero's color. We are immediately showing you that red is what the hero wears, and you know, Prince Charming is kind of our ultimate hero thus far. Yeah. So
makes
sense. Kind of is making that connection in your brain right away. And then, you know, we're going to see that more later when we meet Emma. He wakes her up, he kisses her, whatever. They're like, I'll always find you. That's super cute. They are pretty cute. Side note, by the way, the actors got married.
Really?
Yeah. It's really cute.
I love when that stuff
I
happens.
know. And it doesn't happen that often, but when it does happen, it's
But still,
the best.
you have to give props to the casting department.
No kidding.
Like, they captured the chemistry there
Yeah.
pretty well. They got it.
Right. I wonder who's the screen testing them or whatever.
Right.
It's like, I'm responsible for that. So yeah, then we transition to the wedding. Everything's going great, and then guess who shows up? The evil queen herself.
Evil queen burst into the wedding to protest.
Yes, to protest their happiness. She basically comes in and threatens them, and they're like, we don't want you here. And she's like, I don't care. You're going to listen to what I have to say.
We love a bad bitch.
And yeah, she looks so great doing it, you guys. Like this woman throws open these doors and you're just like, oh my God.
Yeah. And the way that she just marches through, just like, okay. Because this was kind of the first time I watched it, I was like, what the fuck are they doing? Where she's marching through and it looks like she's almost on a treadmill.
Yeah, they do some weird like speed ramp thing.
Yeah, but then I watched it again and I was like, no, that's actually kind of dope. I like it.
Yeah. No, I was into it.
It's such a power move.
I was into it.
Watch me just casually speed walk through these people.
Yeah. And it looks like a little bit silly effects wise, but you roll with it.
Yeah.
You know.
You have to suspend your disbelief a little bit.
Yeah, so you get her introduction and she's chewing it up. Lana has so much fun with this character, I swear to God. But yeah, and then she says, I shall destroy your happiness if it is the last thing I do. And yeah, be the drama. We love it. It's amazing. And then yeah, Charming does this like sword throw move at her, and she disappears into smoke, which by the way, we do in Once Upon a Time in general, they do a lot of disappearing into poofs of smoke. Like this is a thing that happens with magic users. This is probably the best like effects version of that in the whole show, is this part where he throws a sword at her and
it looked pretty good.
It looked pretty good. It looks cool. And like it's very, after that, it's very noticeable when everyone poofs into like a, poof of smoke, and I'm like, oh, it's not the same effect. But that's okay.
Just imagine them throw like smoke bomb.
Yeah, right. It kind of looks like that, like in the show. We transition from the Enchanted Forest, Fairy Tale Land, into our world through a page of the book that Henry has, and he's on the bus, and he's on his way to New York. This kid's so damn cute.
Because her license plate is Massachusetts.
No, I think you're right. I think it is Boston.
Okay.
There's some New York stuff later. And he's on his way to meet Emma. So we get just a quick introduction with Henry, and then we meet Emma Swan. And she rolls in.
Fantastic introduction.
She opens, she's on an elevator. The elevator opens. She's in this amazing hot pink bodycon dress. Jennifer Morrison looking amazing.
Looking great.
She strolls into this fancy restaurant. Yeah, stilettos.
Yes.
Yeah, the whole nine. And she rolls into this restaurant and she sits down and starts talking to this guy, and they appear to be on a first date. We quickly find out, no, this guy is a scumbag, and Emma's here to kick his ass, and take him in because he... How do you say it?
She put up the money, though. She's like a bail bond.
She's a bail bonds person.
Yeah. And she put up the money and he has to repay it.
Yeah. So she's here to drag this guy's ass back to jail, basically. I love the scene because as these two are talking, we get like 6 pieces of information about Emma in like 5 seconds. Mm-hmm. She is a bail bonds person. She's alone. She has no family, no friends. She's kind of a loner. She's good at her job, but she's kind of dissatisfied, and it's her birthday. Yeah. And like you get that all in like
tons
2 minutes
of information just crammed into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she's clearly clever and resourceful for having trapped this guy so easily, so smoothly.
Yeah. You can tell she's done this before. Yeah. She's done this many times before, likely. So Howlin' for You starts playing in the background. Which is like the most 2011 thing ever, and I love it. So yeah, you're grooving to the song, and this guy tries to run out of the restaurant, flips the table on her, gets, I think, wine all over her dress. She's like, seriously? and runs after him. He tries to escape in his car.
This is why I point out the stilettos.
Okay.
Because she is just power walking.
She just walks.
Doesn't even run.
Nope.
Power walks. Follows this guy in her stilettos like, fuck you, man. Like, it's so great.
Yep. Gets him in his car. She's booted his car, so he can't go anywhere. I don't know. They like trade some words, and he's like, what do you, for some reason, he insults her and says, what do you know about family? And she bonks him on the head in the steering wheel and knocks him out. And then she's like, nothing. Oh. And it's kind of sad for a second.
All alone. Before we move on, because I'm assuming you're about to move on.
Yep.
This is going to be my first criticism.
Okay.
Although it becomes a non-criticism, but it does become a criticism again.
Okay.
Which is this era of television with like CW and ABC. I always took issue with this. Okay. Their casting, all their hot people look the same. And like all like to me, no, it's like the same facial features, the same body type, maybe a little variation on the hair color. But otherwise, it's just like generic hot white person. And it's to the point that I genuinely couldn't tell if Snow White and Emma were played by different people at first.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
And then the reason this becomes a non-criticism
is, okay, yeah. Sure. It does make sense in the end.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
But it was one of these things where I'm like, seriously, they all look the same.
I hear you. Yeah. That's not a problem for me.
It's this particular era of television because this happened a lot in Supernatural too, where it was always the same looking woman as like the guest character every episode. Sure.
Yeah, I can see that. I didn't watch a lot of Supernatural, but yeah, I can see it. Okay, noted. So Emma goes home. She gets to her apartment. She kicks off her stilettos. I love that she's like not 2 seconds inside the door and the shoes are off. Yeah. She's just like, she's
among
done.
Us isn't like, okay, shoes off, bra off, we're done.
Yeah, exactly. She's still in the dress, but then she takes out a cupcake and puts it on the counter, sticks a candle in it. The little candle is a star-shaped candle, which is kind of cute, wish upon a star. And then she lights the candle.
References can we squeeze in?
All of them. And she lights the candle and closes her eyes. We get a kind of a close-up shot on her face and the candle in front of her, and she blows out the candle, and not a second later there's a knock on the door. Who could it be? And she opens the door, and we do the gag where she like looks straight in front and then is like, what? And then looks down and Henry's there, which is funny. It's good for a laugh. And he's like, are you Emma Swan? And she's like, yeah. And he's like, I'm Henry. I'm your son. And can you fucking imagine? Like, she's like, I have had a long ass day. What? Yeah. What is going on?
Surprise child.
Yeah, surprise child. And so Henry kind of forces his way past her into the apartment. And she's like, yo, kid, like, I don't have a son. Like, what are you talking about?
To some orange juice.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and before that, he's like, did you give a baby up for adoption 10 years ago? And she just kind of like looks at him, and he's like, yeah, that was me. And she's like, give me a second. She goes and locks herself in the bathroom and has a moment. And I do love Jennifer Morrison's acting here, because you can just tell she is floored. Like, she's so freaked out by this kid showing up. And I also took this as like, when she initially said, I don't have a son, like, she almost forgot. Like, this was so long ago for her, and like, she would have been 18 years old when she had this child. Yeah. She like has almost forgotten that this happened. And now kind of her past is like coming back to hit her in the face. Yeah. And then from the bathroom, Henry's like, do you have any juice?
I found some.
Wait, sorry, found some. And
which,
she comes
like, again, like, talking about like introduction to Emma and the date scene and how they cram so much information into so little. Like, right away with Henry, you're like, oh, he's like, the apple does not fall far from the tree. He found her just as she finds others. Yes. He's going to be resourceful. Yeah. He's going to help himself to whatever the fuck he wants.
Yeah. And he's like super stoked. He's like on this adventure and stuff. Henry's in the kitchen, and Emma comes out, and he's drinking his juice. And Emma's like, okay, what are you doing here? He kind of starts to say like, oh, I'm here to bring you back to my home, and you're going to come with me and take me home. And she's like, I I'm gonna call the cops. And he's like,
which, can you blame her?
Yeah, no, like that is the correct reaction. And he's like, no, because I'll tell them that you kidnapped me. And she's like holding the phone, and she's like, and they'll believe you because I'm your birth mother. Clever little asshole.
Little shit.
Little shit. But then she calls him out on it, because she's like, guess what, kid? You don't know this about me, but I can tell when people are lying, and you're lying. And he's like, please. He like immediately changes tacks. It's like, please drive me home. And she caves eventually, and they go back to Storybrooke.
Naturally, she has to, otherwise we wouldn't have a story.
Yeah, exactly. So Henry succeeds in getting Emma to take him back to Storybrooke, Maine. She's like, are you serious? Storybrooke, Maine? He's like, yeah. Now we transition back to the Enchanted Forest and Snow and Charming, and Snow's freaking out because she's worried about the Evil Queen's threat, and she's pregnant, and she doesn't know what's going to happen. And she's talking to Charming, and she's like, let me talk to him.
Who is he?
And we're all like, who's he? And Charming's like,
why are we so afraid of him?
Yeah, Charming's like, him? You want to talk to him? We're not saying who that is. And eventually they agree that, yes, for our child, we will talk to this mysterious man and see what information he has about whatever the Evil Queen is planning. And I do, there's so many good transitions in this episode, and the way they do it this time is like they're talking, and he's like, okay, we'll do it for our child. And it's like hard cut to Emma in the car with Henry. And yeah, now we're in the car. We're in Emma. We haven't seen the bug yet, but we're in Emma's iconic yellow bug.
Oh my God, I loved it.
It's amazing.
As soon as I saw it, I was like, yes, classic bug.
It's good shit. And I mean, it, makes her immediately identifiable.
Yes.
We also see our first look of the iconic red leather jacket. I wore a leather jacket to record today, but it's too warm. So I had to leave it off, but I did wear one today in honor of Emma Swan.
I don't know if you can see my notes over here, Amanda,
what?
But leather jackets, leather, so much leather,
it's a lot of leather. It is a lot of leather. I would also say from a costuming perspective that leather also tends to be like the hero's fabric. I don't know, material. Like, yeah, she wears the leather jacket. Charming later wears a lot of leather jackets. But then you do have a good amount of leather in the villain characters as well. So I guess that's not totally true. Yeah. It's just, it just looks good, I guess.
Because leather definitely comes back into my notes quite a bit.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Where was I? Yes. Okay. They're driving. They're on their way to Storybrooke, and Henry's flipping through this book, and Emma's like, what's with the book, kid? And he's like, I don't think you're ready. And she's like, try me. And he's like, this is a book of fairy tales, but all the fairy tales are real. And she's like, okay. And he's like, and you should know because you're in this book. And she's like, basically they have a back and forth about this where she's being skeptical and he's trying to convince her, like, no,
having the normal human response.
She's not having the normal human response. He's trying to convince her, no, like fairy tales are real. They're trapped in Storybrooke. There was an evil curse, like all this stuff. The scene ends with Emma saying, oh, kid, you got problems. And Henry goes, yep, and you're going to fix them.
This show, like these episodes have so many just like one-line bangers.
Yes,
and that is one of them.
It is such a banger. It is such a banger. I laughed out loud. Like, I think every time I've watched that episode, I've laughed out loud at that line because I forgot it was coming. And then he says it, and it's so good. And really good delivery on his part.
Yeah, for a child actor, he's solid.
He nails it. Yeah. We cut again. I think, it's another book transition. So we transition into the storybook, which is fun.
They're going to see him.
So now we're in like a scary dungeon. Snow and Charming are being led by some unnamed guard down to this dungeon prison cell where they're gonna meet this guy. I'm just gonna say it's Rumpelstiltskin, y'all.
If you couldn't tell, if you couldn't guess.
If you haven't seen the show, this is one of the coolest character reveals, I think, of this pilot. And I love this intro because he fucking comes down from the ceiling.
I'm like, what a fucking entrance. This bro just drops from the ceiling. He what's up?
He does like a Spider-Man move.
It's
where
awesome.
He kind of like creepily lowers himself from the ceiling. And it's kind of a mid-distance shot as well. So you're like not super close, you're not super far away, but you see him lower himself to the floor.
I like the first time I watched this episode, I completely even missed that. Like, I was paying attention, but it's not like highlighted like look at how creepy it's. It's almost like
you have to notice.
Yeah, it's almost like a decision where like, did the actor just decide to do that?
I wouldn't be surprised.
I'm gonna be in the ceiling for a second, guys.
Yeah,
trust me, it'll work.
Yeah, Robert Carlyle, who plays Rumple, is one of the better actors on the show for sure. And I would not be surprised if he was like, I need to come down from the ceiling for this.
He chews the scenery. Also, shout out to the makeup department because
oh my god,
damn, do they make him look creepy?
Yeah. So he's got the kind of like sparkly golden skin.
Yeah, he almost looks leathery, like a serpent.
Yes. Actually, that's a good kind of.
He's got like a very like snake slimy vibe about him just on wardrobe and makeup alone.
Yeah, he by a different character, he's later referred to as the crocodile.
Really?
So yeah, there you go. You got it in one.
Damn, I'm good.
Yeah, and he's super creepy. He's got like this creepy, like long, like lank sort of hair, the skin, and you know, most of the work is done by the voice. He has like this creepy, sort of high-pitched, like goblin sort of voice that he talks in. And he does switch. He switches from that like high kind of crazy voice to a sort of regular voice.
Yeah.
When he is trying to, you know, and he like chooses how he talks based on what he's conveying.
Which I'll have to admit, the first, like getting that intro to him and him talking in that high pitched voice and like very crazy kooky.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this guy's overplaying it. But But yeah, like even later in this episode, you see him play a much more subtle, toned down character, and you're like, oh no shit, okay, he's up to something.
Yeah.
Like that caricature, at least to me, it's obvious that it's a character.
Yeah.
It is a way that he manipulates others.
Yes. Oh, a bajillion percent. That's all. That's his entire character.
Yeah,
is
which it's not
others.
Immediately obvious just from his intro. You have to kind of piece it together, but like, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's maybe this is me having knowledge of the rest of the show. I feel like it's pretty obvious that he's trying to intimidate them.
Yeah, no, I definitely wrote like, what is I wrote Rumple Bumple up to?
Rumple Bumple.
I call him
That's
Bumple.
a new one. I haven't heard
notes.
that one. Yeah, people call him Rumple in the show.
I mean, who wants to say Rumpelstiltskin?
Yeah,
Rumpelstiltskin.
Yeah, it's a mouthful.
See, it's too hard to say. Rumple Bumple.
Yeah. Yeah. So he comes down from the ceiling. I also want to shout out real quick the design of this. The cell bars is really awesome. There's like pointy part, like it doesn't go all the way across.
It's like
it's not like a straight grid. Yeah. There's like pointy parts and there's like areas where he can kind of stick his face through it so that you can see his face, obviously. So really good design there. So Snow and Charming are coming to talk to him and he's like, ha ha ha, I know why you're here. The evil queen is going to cast a curse. And you know, we're going to make a deal. And I need to get your opinion on this, Camps, because Snow takes this deal so fast. Did you have any type of opinion about that?
Or he's like, I want your child's name.
Yeah, he's like, I want it. Yeah, he says, I want your child's name in return for the information I have. And Charming's like, I can't remember if he actually says something or if he just kind of looks hesitant. And within like a second, Snow's like, deal. And I was kind of like, girl, you don't want to think about this for like 5 seconds?
But I think she's clearly already given it a lot of thought.
Yeah,
she had to work herself up to the point of saying to her husband, hey, we got to go talk to this guy.
Yeah.
Like she had thought about it before then. And if you're going to talk to Rumple Bumple, you know a name's going to play into it somehow. So she probably understood that if they were going to get something from him, they were probably going to have to give him something that's worth it.
Yeah, and I think at this point she's more afraid of the evil queen than she is afraid of Rumple. So good point.
She's a mother being driven by fear. She's going to do what she has to protect her child.
Even if that's sort of giving her child's name away potentially. It's like we're going to push off the consequences of this action so that we can address.
And it's like, do you deal with the evil you have to deal with versus the evil that maybe.
Good point.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I kind of forgot about that, and this time watching through it, I was like, wow, she agreed to that really quickly. And again, maybe that's me being colored by how much I know about Rumple at this point, and how shitty he is. So,
but you also have to realize too, he's not in a position of power at that moment either.
True.
He's stuck in a dungeon.
True.
In a jail cell.
Yeah.
He is at their mercy. So he's not a threat at that moment.
Yep. So basically he explains there's an evil curse coming. It's going to trap us all in time, frozen in time. I think Snow's in charge in this discussion. Basically, she's like, what can we do? And he's like, we can't do anything. And Snow immediately says, who can? And I was like, oh, she's quick. she's on top of it.
Yeah, she is not a pushover.
Yeah. And he kind of points to her belly and is like, your child will be the savior. And then Charming's like, I will cut your hand off if you try and touch my wife.
I will cut you, bitch.
Yeah. I was like, yes, sir. Okay. And then, and then they leave. So they know the first. Okay, go ahead.
I got a note here because essentially it's a prophecy.
Yeah.
Where he's saying your child on their 28th birthday.
Yeah. He squints for a second. He's like,
I wrote this down.
Birthday.
He pauses so dramatically before he says 28 on her 28th. I'm like, is he making this shit up?
Yeah.
I'm like, I genuinely thought he was making it up.
I don't think I think he knew already. He had the whole download already.
Based on the season finale that we'll get to, I'm like, okay, all right, now he actually had a plan. But at the moment I was like, no, he's just making this up.
Yeah. Yeah, but he's not. He's correct.
Well, and it does officially tie Emma to Snow White because she does give Rumplebumple the name.
Yes.
Which is Emma.
So basically they're going to leave without giving him anything. And he's like, wait, he's freaking out them. We had a deal. Give me her name. I need her name. And then Snow turns around and it's like, Emma, her name's Emma. Oh, and before that though, Charming's like, it's not a girl, it's a boy. And then Rumple's like, no, to Snow White, he's like, I'm right. And then she says it's Emma. So yeah. And then hard cut again, back to Emma.
Which they had a little shot of Storybrooke. There was a little garden and there was a little fairy garden ornament.
Yes.
With its wings spinning. I'm like, that is such a clever little insertion.
There's
shot there.
Nice little,
very nice
the transitions.
Little touches.
The transitions are great. So I guess we don't transition right back to Emma directly. They roll into Storybrooke. You see the bug for the first time. It's like, great, the bug's there. Emma asks Henry where he lives, and he says, 44 I'm not telling you street. This kid is such a little shit. We do a comedy,
dramatic car
stop
on the brakes
in the middle of the street. They both get out. She's like, come on, kid. You got to tell me where you live. He's still trying to convince her that fairy tales are here and you have to save them and you have to break the curse, blah, blah, all this stuff. And a man strolls up with a dog and he's like, hey, Henry, are you okay? And Henry clearly knows this guy. And he's like, yeah, Archie, I'm fine. We eventually figure out that Archie is Jiminy Cricket, the personification of Jiminy Cricket. You tell me, do they tell you who he is, what his role in Storybrooke is in this interaction? I can't remember.
Just that he's the sight.
Yeah, he's a therapist. Yeah. Which makes sense for Jiminy Cricket, I think. He's Jiminy Cricket is the philosopher of Disney.
I guess because it's Pinocchio, right?
Yeah, Pinocchio.
Yeah, I've never seen Pinocchio.
When You Wish Upon a Star. You've never seen Pinocchio?
No.
My dude.
I know.
I haven't seen it. It's been a long time, admittedly. Anyway. So, Archie says something like, it never pays to give into our dark side or something to Henry. And Emma's like, okay, bye. She's just so eternally weirded out by all of this, which I love. She never stops being cynical throughout this entire first season, which is amazing.
No, and I got comments on that later.
Oh, yeah. And then Archie, Emma asks Archie where Henry lives. And Archie's like, it's the mayor's house, over on Mifflin Street, biggest one on the block. You can't miss it. And she looks at Henry. She's like, you're the mayor's kid. She's pissed.
Before we transition out of that, though, the clock gets brought up.
Yes, we bring up the clock. Because they get out of the car, and Emma's like, it's really late. And she looks at the clock, and she's like, it's 8:15. And Henry's like, yeah, the clock has been frozen since as long as I've been alive.
Which, strong Back to the Future vibes right there.
Yes,
Not to mention
point.
it's like Main Street USA that they're on too.
Yeah. Big time.
Big time Back to the Future right now.
Big time Back to the Future. Yeah, very idyllic American small town situation.
Which is in Richmond, Canada.
Yeah. We're pretending to be in Maine, but we're in Canada.
As is the case with most American TV shows.
We cut back to the Enchanted Forest, and we're in the War Council.
At the round table.
The round table of fairy tale characters. Did you clock everybody sitting here?
Yeah. I don't think you're gonna like my comment on this.
I'm ready for it. I mean, this is kind of a weird scene. It's like, go ahead.
Yeah, because it's a bunch of the characters debating like what they should do. So you got the dwarves sitting there. You got Grandma and Little Red Riding Hood and Jiminy Crickets in the room. I forget who else is
in
all there.
actual cricket form.
Yes. But I wrote, I got it. It's Shrek vibes, but wholesome.
It's Shrek vibes, but okay. First of all, Shrek is wholesome,
but it's more wholesome. Like Shrek is a lot more cynical because it's the same concept. Sure. You're gonna take a bunch of fairy tale characters, mash them together, have them interact, and see what happens.
You're not wrong.
And
you're not wrong.
It's basically Shrek.
Yeah,
but Disneyfied,
and not animated. They have this discussion. Snow White and Charming are kind of leading. Well, actually, Charming's kind of leading the discussion. Snow appears to be kind of depressed at this point. She's like,
she's given up.
She's given up a little bit. Which she's super pregnant. I don't blame her. One of the dwarves, Grumpy, I think, is like, let's go fight her. Charming's like ready to fight, basically. Grumpy at least agrees with him. Then
Jiminy Cricket's like, no, don't give in to
Jiminy
evil.
Cricket. Yeah, Jiminy Cricket repeats the line about not giving in to the dark side. So there's your connection. We do that a lot in the show as well, kind of repeating some dialogue.
A Star Wars vibe though too, with that light dark dichotomy.
Light dark
of like, there's a light side, there's a dark side. Like, don't give in to the evil. Like, it's a very strong binary.
I have things to say about this.
Oh shit! Okay,
I have things to say about this later. For right now, it very much is that vibe. And then basically, the blue fairy rolls in, which the blue fairy's costume is the craziest costume in this whole show.
All I could think was booba.
Right,
very booba.
Oh my god!
And then the skirt.
The skirt looks like a jellyfish.
Yeah.
A frisbee. A frisbee jellyfish.
A frisbee jellyfish.
Yeah. It's insane. It's truly insane.
It's a wild look.
Why they had to do that to her boobs, I don't know. There's really no reason.
No words.
It's truly like, it's brain stopping, clearly, from
which I guess if you're listening to this and you haven't watched the show yet and you're very into boobs, go check it out.
You're gonna have to edit that out. But it's crazy. Anyway, so Blue Fairy flies in and she's like, guess what? There's a magical tree, and in this magical tree we can keep one person safe from this curse that's coming. They say Geppetto and Pinocchio are going to carve a quote-unquote wardrobe, I believe, into this tree. Very Narnia vibes. So that Snow and her unborn child can escape the curse and save everybody, ostensibly. So that's the plan. And they all agree to that, basically. And then we transition back. Mm-hmm. And this is now one of my favorite scenes.
We get to meet the mayor.
This is one of my favorite scenes of the pilot. So I call this scene Meeting Mayor Mills. We roll up on the Mills mansion, and it's dark outside, but you can still see the outside of the house. And I love this house. Like, I think it looks cool. It's like this, colonial style. Like, I love the porch. I don't know. It's a good porch.
Okay. That's fair.
I also love that they kind of walk through this like hedge to get into the yard, which also
definitely gives it like a sense of separation from the rest of the street, even like it's in its own little castle.
And I don't know, something about walking through the hedge feels fairy tale-ish to me.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Again, it's like secret garden, sort of like Narnia vibes.
Beauty and the Beast, when Belle enters the Beast garden and accidentally picks the rose.
Yeah, so Emma and Henry are walking up to the house. Henry's like, I don't want to go back. And Emma's like, I'm sure your parents are worried about you. And he's like, I don't have parents, just a mom, and she's evil. and yikes, Henry. And he says, she's evil and she only pretends to love me. And now you're like, oh, dang. And Emma's like, kid, I'm sure that's not true. Cue the front door opening. Regina Mills,
concerned mother runs
very,
out.
very concerned mother comes out. She's clearly been like distraught, crying. She, like, her makeup's kind of running and stuff. She immediately like runs up to Henry and hugs him and is like, where have you been? Like, what's going on?
So relieved that he's there.
So relieved. And yeah, and the sheriff is in her house. Like, clearly she's been calling the cops. She's trying to figure out where he's gone. She's freaking out. And Henry has no patience for this woman. He's like, I found my real mom, and runs past her. And the look on this woman's face is so hurt.
That line killed me, though.
Oh my God.
So much. Just like a child throwing a tantrum.
Oh yeah, he's a 10-year-old.
Real mom.
Yeah, he's a 10-year-old. And you know, he believes at this point, and to his credit, correctly, that she's the evil queen. But anyway, I found my real mom. He runs inside. And Regina, first of all, is like totally, you know, kind of hurt by this. But then she just kind of slowly looks at Emma and she's like, you're Henry's birth mother? And Emma's just like, hi. It's
this is awkward.
The meet cute of the century, y'all. It's really good. Yeah. And then she kind of, well, actually, I did notice Regina kind of gives her a once over, like just like kind of looks at her real quick. And then she kind of puts on her mayor, you know, face and is like, how would you like a glass of the best apple cider you've ever tasted? And Emma's immediate response is, got anything stronger? And we cut. So that's their meeting.
Yeah.
Let's see. Do we go straight into the house after that?
I think so. Yeah. They just they share a drink. They get a lot of apples all over the place.
Yeah. So here we go. So they go inside. Regina pours them drinks. She's kind of asking her like, you know, how did Henry find you? And Emma's like, I have no idea. And then she's like, do I have to worry about you? And she's like, absolutely not. And Regina's like, is there a father? Or, you know, like, what about the father? And Emma's like, there was one. And she's like, do I need to worry about him? And Emma's like, nope, he doesn't even know. And then the sheriff comes down and he's like, Henry's fine, I'm going to go. And she's like, thanks, sheriff. And then they go into Regina's study, I think is what this is, of sort of. It's like a little, you know, library sort of seating area. It's like a nice house. You know, it's just pretty fancy.
Like not governor's mansion, mayor's mansion.
Yeah, but like nice.
Yeah.
Very classy. Like, Regina's a classy bitch. Like, okay, so they're talking. Regina's like, you know, I've been having problems with Henry since I became mayor. Like maybe I'm a little bit tough on him, but like I want him to be successful or whatever. Emma basically is like, yeah, you know, he's your kid. Like, I'm just here to bring him back. And you know, I can't remember what the exact conversation is, but basically Emma brings up like, oh, he's obsessed with these fairy tale characters. Yeah. He has the storybook. And Regina's like, what are you talking about? And she's like, oh, you know, he thinks everyone in this town is a fairy tale character. I love the way this cuts because they're doing a basic like back and forth shot, but you cut to Regina saying, oh, I have no idea what you're talking about. And you cut back to Emma and it's like a little bit closer up on her face and you can see her clock the lie. You can see her lying meter go off, but she doesn't say anything because she's like, this is not my problem.
Yeah, she's like, you know what? It's not my business.
Yeah, she's like, you know what? It's none of my business. Like, it's your kid.
This is something I'm going to comment on in the next scene that we get between the mayor and, well, actually, no, whatever. Order of operations is hard.
Yeah.
But the mayor, it's like almost a little bit of whiplash because she goes from being super friendly, we're having a casual conversation, and then as soon as Emma's like, you know, it's none of my business, like clearly clocked that something suspicious is going on, the mayor's like, okay, leave. Here's the door.
Oh yeah.
Get out.
Emma opens the door to it. Emma says like, it's your kid, and you know what? I should really be going. Yeah. And Regina like takes that opportunity basically to be like, okay, I'll see you out. And you can tell like Emma's a little bit startled. Like she's like, oh, I just started drinking my drink. Like,
yeah, you can tell like this mayor, like obviously we know it's the evil queen.
Yeah.
But from Emma's perspective, there's obviously another dimension going on here that we're not allowed to fully see yet.
Yeah. Yep. So she leaves. There's a great shot of Regina sort of closing the door behind her, and you can kind of see her face. Like there's something happening on her face where she's like she's clearly like thinking about how to play this. And I think from there we cut back to the Enchanted Forest. There was one other thing I wanted to say about that scene. What was it?
I'll just have leather. So much leather.
No, about them sitting and talking in the study scene. Oh, there's a great shot where when Emma first sits down on the couch and Regina goes and like stands by the fireplace or something. Emma sits down on the couch. She like takes a sip of her drink and puts it down on the table, and the camera pans down, and there's just a big old bowl of apples right there.
Apples all over
and
this
it
house.
just for a second, and then it pans back up to her face, and I love that shot. That's great. Then Emma leaves. She gets back in her car. She's on the road. She looks over into her front seat and realizes Henry has left the storybook in her front seat.
I wonder if he did that on purpose.
Yeah, and she is like, she kind of half smiles and is like, "You little shit." And then she's driving. It's raining. She suddenly sees. She's like about to leave the town, about to cross the town line.
There's the sign for the town.
There's literally the sign right there. A mysterious wolf appears in the road. And she swerves to avoid the wolf and crashes into the sign, hits her head on the steering wheel, and passes out. So she's not going anywhere. And yeah, and then the transition there again is the storybook is like open on the floor, and we transition back into the pages of the storybook, back into the Enchanted Forest, where the curse is coming. So Snow and Charming, we go to Snow and Charming again. They're talking. They're not really fighting, but like Snow's saying like, "Oh, I can't do it. Like I can't leave you. I can't do this alone." And he's like, "No, you have to like take our child and like go through the wardrobe or whatever." And then she goes into labor basically.
Which
and
of
it's
course,
like, of course the baby's coming, and here comes the curse. And then you see like the like purple and green smoke start to roll over the land, and that is the curse coming.
Which, to represent like the curse,
mm-hmm.
like effects aside, it is a very cool way.
I thought it was like, great.
It's literally coming. You can see it. It's Point being, it's cool. I like it.
Yeah,
nice
I like
effect,
it too.
Good visual.
Yeah, and I think for this episode especially, I think the fairy tale land looks pretty good. Like that when they do the outside shots of the castle and they do some of the like wider, scenery shots, that shot of the curse rolling over and coming towards the castle, I think it looks pretty good.
Yeah, they definitely put a lot of effort into this.
You can
pilot.
tell for sure. Yeah, so the curse is coming, and then we cut again. So we're in the police station. Emma's waking up in a jail cell. She doesn't know why she's waking up in a jail cell. And long story short, there's some other characters there too, but long story short, the police sheriff is like, "Well, Regina Cider was like a little bit stronger than we thought, huh?" And she's like, "I wasn't drunk. I swerved to avoid a wolf and I crashed. But I wasn't drunk." And then Regina walks in and she's like, "Henry's gone." She says to the sheriff, whose name is Graham, I think. "Graham, Henry's gone again. Like, he's run away again. We have to find him." And she sees Emma there and she's like, "What are you still doing here?" And Emma's like, "Look, maybe we can help each other out. I find people for a living. I'll help you find Henry. You can let me out of here." And they're like, "Okay, fine." So they go looking for Henry. They go in Henry's email. They find a receipt for a website purchase that he made for who'syourmama.org, which he used to try and find Emma, which I thought was hilarious. Hilarious touch. There's a little bit of a discussion in here about like Emma's talking about like ways she like methods she uses to find people that has she's got like this little like USB thing, whatever, that helps her hack people's computers. And the sheriff is like, "Yeah, I'm like more traditional. I pound the pavement, blah blah." And it's like a weird little exchange, but I guess it kind of becomes relevant later. And then
she gets a good line in there too, where she's like, "Well, your salary, I get paid on delivery."
Yes.
And like that line alone, they're like, "Oh, this girl's scrap."
Yeah. That's a good point. That's a really good point. Yeah, she works and she has to deliver or she doesn't get paid. And then she says, "Oh, like the credit card that he used is Mary Margaret Blanchard." Who's Mary Margaret Blanchard? And if you know anything about like names or word meanings, you immediately know who this is. Blanchard, come on. And basically everybody's name in this show has something.
Well, Regina,
literally means queen. Emma's the only one who has like, Actually, I wonder what Emma does mean. But
know.
Emma Swan. It's just kind of random. Dr. Hopper is Jiminy Cricket. Anyway, this just keeps going. It never stops. We cut and we go to the school where Mary Margaret is teaching elementary school class about making birdhouses, and
she's got a bird in her hand.
She got a little blue bird in her hand, and
she's a little Disney princess.
She's like a little Disney princess, and she's like, you got to treat these birds right, and if you like are good to them, they'll always find you. If you love them and they love you, they will always find you.
You
wrote it down.
I wrote it down because I had a question for you.
Okay.
Costuming.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of like bird/feather motif around Snow White.
Yep.
Like
Makes
almost
sense.
every single one of her costumes has feathers in it.
You know what? That's
at
a really
least
good
in
point.
the fairy tale world.
Yeah.
In the real world, obviously you got to tone it down a bit more, but then she's got birds all over her.
Uh-huh.
So I mean, like, what's going on there?
That's a direct reference to the movie.
Is it just like because she's singing to birds?
Yeah, she's like she can talk to birds almost.
Oh, okay. All right.
As in the cartoon, yeah. So yeah, that's definitely what it is. So yeah, she has got the little bluebird. She lets the little bluebird fly away, and yeah, so we see what she looks like in Storybrooke Land for the first time, and she shout out to the adorable pixie cut.
Yeah.
It looks great on her.
I liked it.
Yeah.
I was like, that's like a refreshing change.
Yeah, and it makes her look really different
Yes.
from the Snow White that we've been seeing in Fairy Tale Land.
It was a good change up. I also have a comment here that a student gave her a pear, and I
Yes!
just wrote lol.
Yes, yeah, that's such a good moment. Yeah, and you can clearly like the inference from that is that she's told the students, don't give me apples. I only like pears.
But like the students clearly like her enough that they want to give her fruit.
Yeah. So she's a good teacher.
Yeah.
Emma and Regina walk into Mary Margaret's classroom, and they're looking for Henry. I forget, how does this go down? And I mean, basically Regina's pissed off because Regina's kind of always
like,
pissed off.
You helped him. You orchestrated this.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And then like Emma's like, you had no idea that this was happening, did you? And Mary Margaret's like, nope, I did not. She opens her wallet. Her card's gone. She's like, clever boy. And then,
clever girl.
Yeah. And then it comes out that Mary Margaret was the one who gave Henry the book. So she gave Henry the book, and she's kind of talking to Regina, and she's like, as you know, Henry is a very smart, very intelligent, special boy. And as you might also know, very lonely. And it's like such a subtle dig at her, which is great. But like also, she like wants her to know that Henry is like,
like it's coming from a place of genuine concern.
Absolutely. But like clearly they've been at odds before.
They got beef.
Yeah, they got beef.
Like Mary Margaret is like this sweet, perfect little angel, but she clearly got beef with Regina.
Yeah. And yeah, Regina kind of storms out of the room, and leaving Emma and Mary Margaret together. They start talking, and there's a moment where they're like picking up books off the floor together, and Mary Margaret looks at Emma, and she like there's something happens to her face where she's like, do I know you?
Like a moment of recognition.
Yeah, like a half moment of recognition. Yeah. And then she kind of snaps out of it. They're talking, and Snow is saying talking about why she gave Henry the book. And it's because stories are, they're meant to comfort us and provide us with hope, and hope is the most important thing that you can have. And she's like, he's wrestling with that question that all adopted children go through, which is, why would anyone ever want to give me away? Ouch. And then she's like, suddenly she's like, oh my gosh, Emma, I didn't mean to judge you, immediately apologizes. And Emma's like, it's fine. Hilariously, she doesn't know she also gave her daughter away.
The great irony here.
Yeah, the great irony here. Yeah, and then Emma's like, you know where he is, don't you? And Mary Margaret's like, you might want to check his castle. And now we cut back, right?
Mm-hmm. Cut back to fairy tale
land. Yeah, so you can either say the Enchanted Forest or Fairy Tale Land. Yeah, I think the fandom goes back and forth between those two.
I was like, yeah, do we have a solid name?
Yeah, people say the EF, so the Enchanted Forest.
Okay.
I've also heard FTL, Fairy Tale Land.
I like EF.
EF, yeah. Yeah, so we go back to the Enchanted Forest. Basically, shit's going down. Snow's in labor. She's about to have this baby. Charming's there. Doc is there, hilariously. And they...
Who else would you call?
Who else? There's no one else, apparently. And yeah, she's in labor. They can't move her. She's gonna have this baby. And
but the tree's now ready. The wardrobe is ready.
Yeah, the tree's ready. Yeah, basically Charming's like about to move her, and Doc's like, it's too late. Like, we can't move her. She has the baby. There's a great little like montage here where she's in labor. She's screaming. We're cutting to the curse. Like, the evil queen's on her way in her carriage. The curse is coming. There's like a lot of fun cutting happening here. That's a good edit. And yeah, and then we go back and ta-da, there's baby. And they did find a decently small baby for this, which is good. Sometimes, you know how sometimes you're watching shows and you're like, it's a newborn baby, and you're like, that's a newborn baby. No, this is an actual small baby.
Also, definitely beats when it's just a plastic baby, and you can obviously tell it's a plastic baby.
No, there's real babies all around in this show. There's a lot of babies in the show, actually, throughout the 7 seasons. A surprising amount of babies, and they're always real babies. So A+. Yep, and they're both like... Basically Charming's like, well, it's too late, like, at least we're together. Snow kind of looks at Emma and looks at him and is like, no, we have to put her in the wardrobe, like, we have to save her. And
like, to clarify, because I don't think we stated this, only one person can go in the wardrobe.
Only one being can go in the wardrobe. So yeah, which
is why it was such a great plan when it was going to be Snow,
right,
who was pregnant,
who was technically one being at that point.
You would have gotten away with it.
Yeah, would have gotten away with it. But now Emma's out in the world. So basically Snow's like, you got to take her. They hear sort of scuffling outside. Yeah, commotion. The Queen's guards are here. So he, like the badass he is, he's got his baby daughter in one arm, draws his sword with the other, and like heads out, and they kind of, it's
I wrote down sword fight with baby.
Hell yeah. Nice. Seriously though, it is really great. But yeah, I think this is a really well played emotional moment between the two of them and their little family, and you do feel it, I think.
Whoever it is that plays Mary Margaret, like Snow, like
Jennifer
did
Goodwin.
an excellent job of like, I gotta be tough, I gotta be brave, I gotta let my baby go. And as soon as the prince is out of the room, she's like, oh my god,
falls apart.
Like, it's really well done.
Yeah, and you feel like she starts like sobbing.
Yeah.
And yeah, you feel it. And then he rolls out into the hallway. The Queen's guards are there. I hate the Queen's guards costumes. I think they
have little feathers.
Do they?
Yes.
I guess I have to look at them more closely. Episode. They look a little bit Monty Python to me.
Oh my god, they do. Oh my god, how did I not see that? They are the Black Knights.
They look like the Black Knight.
Oh, shit.
So I don't love it, but it is what it is.
Well, now I love it even more.
No. Yeah. Shout out to Monty Python. But yeah, so we have a pretty nice sword fight in this hallway, to be honest. Some nice sword play. Extra pressure with him holding the baby in one arm. He does get sliced a little bit, but he stabs 2 guards and moves on. So he gets in the room. He goes straight to and I do love how quick this is. There's no dawdling. He goes straight to the wardrobe, puts her inside, kisses her goodbye, says, find us, shuts the doors. Boom, done. The more guards show up. He's been sliced. He's kind of out of it. He fights and he gets stabbed.
I say, oh no, Prince Charming, he died.
Oh no, Prince Charming, he died. Yeah, so he passes out, but before he passes out, the guards go to the wardrobe, open it, and Emma's gone.
Baby's gone.
She's escaped. And he kind of smiles and then passes out. And yeah, it's kind of unclear at this point whether he's dead or not.
I thought he was dead.
You thought he was dead?
I thought he was dead.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't remember like the first time I initially watched this pilot if I thought he was dead or not.
Because, okay, I don't know if we, like, because I don't have this written down, but, like, he seems dead.
Yeah.
And Snow comes in.
Yeah.
And she's trying to kiss him back to life.
Yeah.
And she's like, why isn't it working?
Yeah.
I'm like, he's dead.
Yeah.
He's dead.
He's pretty dead. I think the technical sort of explanation for this is that he's almost dead. He's like on the verge of death.
Okay.
Basically. Because we'll get to that later.
Yeah. Because I wrote down, does he have plot armor or something?
Yeah. Oh yeah. He's coming back. He's essential. Okay. So we go back to Henry and Emma in Henry's castle, which is basically like a playground version of a castle. It looks a little rickety, to be honest. Like it could use some work. But yeah, they're talking, and Emma's like gives him the book back. She's like, you left this in my car. And they have a little heart-to-heart, which is really sweet. And basically they end up saying, like Henry's like, it's okay, I know you like me, first of all, which is funny. And then he's like, you know, you don't have to feel awkward around me. Like, I understand why you gave me away. And she's like, you do? And he's like, yeah, you wanted to give me my best chance, which is a recurring line. And Emma's like, oh shit. She like has like, she's like about to cry. She's like, yeah, you're right. Basically, like, I need to give you your best chance, and it wasn't going to be with me. Mm-hmm. And Henry's still trying to convince her, like, I don't want to go back to my mom, as in Regina, my mom. And he's like, you don't know what it's like for me. Like, she's super strict, basically, and whatever. He doesn't really even go into what the problems are.
No, he just sounds like a little boy.
He just, yeah, at this point, he kind of just sounds like a little boy who's, like, doesn't like the restriction of being a child, basically. And he, like, as we've established, he is a very clever little boy. So being told what to do is not his favorite thing. But basically Emma's like, yeah, you know what though? Like, you say your mom doesn't love you, but at least she wants you. Like, I was put in a foster family when I was a baby, and
they found me on the side of a highway.
They found me on the side of a highway. Like, my parents didn't even drop me off at a fire station or whatever, or hospital. I was placed with a family until I was 3, but then they had their own kid and they gave me back. Like, that sucks.
Yeah, just trauma dumping on this 10-year-old.
Trauma jumping a little bit on this kid, but also giving him some much needed perspective on, like, your life isn't that bad. Or at least, you know, from Emma's perspective at this point, from what she thinks is happening. You know, not realizing all this fairy tale stuff is true. So yeah, and basically, you know, Henry's like, just stay for a week, like, please, like, you'll see what I'm saying is true. And she's like, I don't think she commits to anything. She's like, come on, kid, like, let's get you back to your mom. And then we go back to the curse. Yeah, and then Snow. This is really sad, you guys. Snow walks in to the nursery, essentially, where Emma has just disappeared, and Charming is on the floor, possibly dead. And she walks in, and she's just given birth, y'all. She's like limping in. She sees him on the floor. She starts like crying and like, no, like,
solid,
you know,
performance here.
Very good. Very good. You know, she comes to on the floor and she like sits down next to him and she's like, you don't leave me. And she tries to kiss him, like you said. Yeah, you can tell like she has a kind of realization moment where she's like, oh, I can kiss him. I can bring him back. And she kisses him and it doesn't work. And she kisses him again and it still doesn't work. And then
I'm trying to think. That reminds me of something.
What?
Is it Enchanted? Like where he's like kissing her and it's not working and he just like keeps trying to kiss her?
It might very well. I haven't seen that movie in so long. I know they made a sequel, but I didn't watch it.
Oh, they did?
Yeah, Disenchanted.
What?
Yeah. It's actually, you know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, it has some, from the what I know of it on like surface level, it has some similarities to this, where there's like an evil version of her. Anyway, sort of Enchanted coded there, but yeah, it doesn't work. He's still on the floor.
He's still dead.
Yeah, he's still dead-ish. She's like cradling him in her arms, and then your girl walks in. The Evil Queen rolls in. She's wearing like a black cloak situation. She's got, her hair is always crazy as the Evil Queen. She's got like some red feathers in her hair. It's really interesting.
Yeah. She's looking extra arch.
She's looking extra menacing. And she's like, oh, don't worry, dear. Like, you know, you won't even remember him in a minute. And Snow's like, what are you talking about? Like, what's going on? Basically, the Evil Queen is like, the curse is coming. Like, we're all going somewhere horrible. And then I think the guards come in and she's like, where's the baby? And they're like, oh, he took the baby and she was in the wardrobe. But then when we opened it, she was gone. And Snow didn't realize this. Mm-hmm. So Snow's all of a sudden like, oh, she got away. Ha. And then she looks up at Regina, is like, you're going to lose. And she's pissed, but basically the curse is coming anyway. So like stuff starts, it's coming in, like the windows are breaking, stuff is swirling around the room. This is actually one of probably the most iconic like shots / scenes of the show. The curse coming in. And and the Evil Queen sort of laughing maniacally. Lana does a really good evil laugh. She's like, we're going somewhere horrible. which is hilarious. Storybrooke, Maine. And then the curse swirls in, the magic swirls in around them, and they disappear. We cut to black. So yeah, the curse is in effect. And yeah, we cut from there. I think that's a commercial break, but from there we come back to, once again, Emma bringing Henry back to the mayor's house. Mm-hmm. And I refer to this as the first porch scene, because technically when they first met, we were in the yard. They do quite a few scenes with Emma and Regina on this porch, and I think I like it because they kind of use it to do the power dynamic.
Yeah.
So we have the porch scene. So Henry just runs into the house past Regina, like doesn't say anything to her, nothing. And she just kind of like follows him with her eyes and is like, what the heck? And then she turns back to Emma and she's like, well, looks like he's like taken a liking to you. And Emma's like, yeah. And she's kind of, there's a shot real quick where it's kind of like, again, a mid-distance shot. It's from the yard, looking at them kind of from a side angle. And Regina's on the porch standing above Emma, and Emma's standing in the yard.
Looking down on Emma.
Looking down on her. So very much we're showing the power dynamic here. Regina's in control, and she wants to stay in control.
Yes, but the way that the scene is initially played is, again, back to cordial of, I'm going to put on the mayor face, and I'm going to be friendly.
For a second. Yeah. Yeah, Emma's like, basically starts saying, like, you know, it's funny, like, yesterday was my birthday, and I blew out a candle and I wished that I wouldn't be alone on my birthday. And then Henry showed up. And she's kind of just like sharing this as like a friendly, you know, story, I guess. And like she's not trying to be any type of way about this at all. But Regina immediately like lays into her. She's like, is there a misunderstanding here? And Emma's like, what? And she's like, you have no rights to Henry. This was a closed adoption. You gave up your child and I have changed every diaper, soothed every fever, dealt with every tantrum. He is my son and you're not welcome in his life. And if you if you try to take him or whatever, like I will destroy you if it's the last thing I do.
Yeah, like, and this is what I mean by whiplash. Like she goes from, I'm gonna play like the civil, I'm the mayor, I will burn you.
Yeah. Yeah. Which this is very, I love this moment because it's just very indicative of Regina's character, particularly at this point in the story, which is Henry is all she has at this point. She's enacted this curse, and now we're gonna get into proper spoiler territory, y'all. Proper spoiler territory. She's enacted this curse. It was to get her revenge. She finds out at some point that it's not all it's cracked up to be. And that's kind of, I won't go into the whole thing, but that's how she ends up with Henry, is she decides she wants to adopt a child because she wants someone to love and someone to love her unconditionally. And that's all she's really been wanting her entire life. Any hint of a threat to that, to Henry, to her relationship with Henry, she flips a switch. And the evil queen comes out and she lays into Emma.
And this, to me, like, this is where I was like, oh, this is the moment that Emma decided to stay.
Yes. So let's talk about it.
That's the ironic part. Yes. Is the queen or Regina, like, threatening her explicitly.
It's such delicious irony. Yeah. So basically, she says what she says. She's like Regina's turning to go back into the house. And we do a great shot. This is my favorite shot of the whole pilot, possibly of the whole show, where we're on Emma and we do like a 180 pan around her face to the other side of her head. And that's to like show her making the decision. And just at this point to make the decision to ask Regina the question.
Yes.
Which is, do you love him? And Regina turns around and she's like, excuse me? And she's like, Henry, do you love him? And she looks at him and we do like a super close up shot of her face. And she's like, of course I love him. And you go cut right back to Emma's face. There's like a little music cue and her face, you know, she registers the lie. And then that's when she decides to stay.
Yeah, that's the moment.
And yeah, Regina slams the door, but she's made her choice.
There is a good shot here too after the mayor slams the door of her looking into a mirror, very arch.
Yes.
And I wrote down, why is she doing, oh duh, it's a mirror.
Oh wait. Yeah, we'll get into that too. Let me talk about the outfits real quick in this scene. So yeah, the color the color symbolism, right? So I already kind of talked about red is the hero's color. White, obviously, you see on Snow White. Like Snow White wears white. We saw earlier that with Mary Margaret as well in the classroom. She's wearing some kind of white blouse,
like whites and shades of gray,
shades of light gray, which is interesting. Which I think for her kind of symbolizes more of her kind of sadness living in this life. But she still has the white underneath, so that's like her core self. And then in this scene with Emma and Regina, Emma's basically in her same outfit that she's been in the whole time because she crashed her car and woke up in a jail cell. So she's still wearing the red hero's jacket. You do kind of see, now that it's daylight, you kind of see better to what she's wearing underneath that, which is also like a sort of white or off-white shirt, which to me is like tying her to Snow White. She's like,
it ties her to both her parents.
Both her parents, yeah. And she's Snow White's daughter. She's the savior. She's got the white underneath and then the red armor basically over the top. And it's, now that you're mentioning it, it's basically the colors of both of her parents, which is cool. And then Regina, at this point, it's a new day. She was wearing a gray dress. Oh, I didn't talk about this in the other scene. I got to talk about this too. Okay, in this scene, she's basically wearing a black dress with a gray blazer over the top of it. Yeah. So when we first meet her in the previous scene, when Emma first brings Henry back, she's wearing this gray dress and she might have like a black belt on or something, but it's basically a solid gray dress, which to me is like, we're just meeting this woman. She's an unknown quantity. Mm-hmm. She's not evil yet from Emma's perspective. Like she doesn't know that she's evil. And she's kind of an unknown. It's like an in-between color. You know what I mean?
I mean, like the way that she plays the mayor character in particular, because not the queen, the evil queen. You're like,
evil queen's evil.
That's easy. She's evil. Yeah. But when she's playing the mayor, there is a lot more shades of gray in the performance where you're like, I know she's supposed to be the antagonist,
but what's going on here?
But is she? Is she actually going to be the bad guy here? Yep. And that was the question that I had even before we get to the final scenes of the episode.
Yeah. Yeah. So then in the later scene, she's wearing the black dress. She's got the gray blazer over the top. The gray blazer is also a little bit darker. So in general, she looks darker. Mm-hmm. Like the color scheme is dark. So now we're showing that she's got the black on underneath. So underneath, she's the evil queen. Black is the evil queen's color. But she's still wearing this gray blazer over the top that's like she's trying to disguise who she is still. Yeah. And, the blazer, it's like that choice is very tied to Regina in particular because she's the mayor. So she's like very professional. And it's like the exact opposite of Emma. So Emma's wearing this leather jacket. She's kind of like out pounding the pavement, looking for people, getting paid on delivery, all that stuff. Regina is the government. Basically, she's in charge. She's
a politician.
She's got to play it like a politician. She's got the blazer, and that's kind of her version of armor. So I love that. And then I will mention also for all of y'all playing along for the long game, in the scene as well where we first meet Regina and Emma and Henry's there. Yeah, we have Emma in the red, we have Regina in the gray, and Henry is always wearing this little red and gray striped scarf. And I think it's very important that we meet Emma in the red, Regina in the gray, and then Henry's wearing the red and gray striped scarf that shows that he belongs to both of them.
That is clever. Yeah. I like that.
Yeah. So, and he basically never loses that scarf throughout the whole show. He's always wearing that scarf. So it's really cute. If that, being that symbolism. And, that's definitely, like, if you're reading into that, like, that's something I noticed on rewatch, obviously, knowing what happens later. But it's such a cool detail that they put it in there. The costume team put that in there, knowing what is going to happen with them eventually.
Yeah, it's a very, like, knowing nothing about where the show goes.
Yeah.
Like, it's a very subtle way of even just showing, like, the influence of, like, nature versus nurture and how he's going to have both elements of both sides within him.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think
he's kind of this bridge.
Yeah, for Henry and then also for the two of them, very importantly showing that, like, basically this entire first season, they're fighting about, is Henry Emma's son or is Henry Regina's son? They're fighting over him. Eventually, the consensus is he is both of their son. and their family. So we're just kind of setting that up right away here, at least in the symbolism of the costumes and the color choice.
I like it.
Yeah, it's awesome. Now we're finally wrapping it up, y'all. So Emma makes a decision to stay. And then we cut to kind of a bunch of wrap-up scenes. So yeah, like you said, we see Regina in the mirror. She goes up to Henry's room. She gets the storybook. She takes it away from him. She takes it downstairs. She looks in the mirror in, I don't know, like her hallway or something, foyer. And I love this.
Super dramatic.
Staring
in the mirror, like camera pauses and holds on the shot for a while. And that's why I was like, why are we looking in a mirror for so long?
Yeah. And we do a lot with mirrors throughout this whole show. Mirrors are another big symbolism piece. But yeah, I love this moment in particular because I think the way Lana plays this is when she first pulls up to the mirror and is looking at there, I see terror. I see fear. Like, she is suddenly terrified that this construction of reality that she's created around herself for the last 28 years, she's suddenly afraid it's going to come crashing down around her.
Because you definitely get the feeling she doesn't know about Rumpelbumpel's prophecy.
I don't think she does at this point. So yeah, so she's freaking out, and so she's afraid that, you know, this is the beginning of the end, which it is. And then she's afraid of losing Henry.
Because, hold on. Sorry. No, I'm processing this. Because she definitely perceives Emma as a threat in regards to Henry, but not Emma as a threat in regards to this construction.
Correct. She doesn't know yet.
Yes.
Yeah.
The person who's going to end the curse.
I think she knows as soon as, like, the next episode or two, she figures it out. But yeah, she doesn't know right now. This town has been on a loop for the last 28 years, and this is a huge change. And yeah, she's afraid of losing Henry. And then the evil queen mask sort of descends into place. She, like, replaces her fear, covers her fear with, you know, the evil queen mask, rage, you know, kind of hatred. She gets, like, a little bit of an evil smirk on her face. And that's that. And then we go to, Mary Margaret in the hospital, and she's distributing flowers, white flowers, to the patients in the hospital. And she opens the door.
Find out that Prince Charming, who was definitely dead, isn't quite dead yet. Throw in another Monty Python reference here.
Yeah.
I'm not dead yet.
Not dead yet.
I feel fine.
He's in a coma. She puts flowers next to his bed. Doesn't even really seem to, there's, like, no recognition at all. She just puts flowers on his bed. She maybe, like, pats his arm or something and then leaves.
Yeah, but it's not like she treats him any different than any of the other patients.
No, she's, like, just there volunteering.
Yeah.
Yep. So basically, that shot is there to show us he's not in fact dead, but he is in a coma. And then we follow Emma to Granny's. So Emma goes to Granny's bed and breakfast. We're introduced to Granny and what we will later learn is Ruby. That's her character's name.
I just wrote down Red.
Yeah, Red. Her name's Ruby. There's another one for you. And yeah, they own the inn. And Emma's like, they're bickering about something, and it's Ruby tried to leave, apparently, but then Granny had a heart attack, so she had to stay, which is just more kind of building up the lore of the curse, I think, because everyone's trapped, right?
Yeah, because that was my thing, is like, can you leave this place?
Yeah, you can't.
So I guess Henry would be the
Hotel
only
California.
one who could.
Yeah, Henry's the only one who can because he was born outside of the curse.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so was Emma. Except now she's kind of trapped too. But we're going to get there. Or she at least has been sort of pulled into the vortex of events. You know, her destiny is coming. So she gets a room. They're like shocked that she wants to stay at the inn. So, like,
very, very dusty, cobweb covered and keeping bug.
Yeah, clearly this place needs some work. And Granny's like all excited. She's like, do you want a square view or a forest view? And Emma's like, square is fine. And she's like, yeah, I'm just staying for a week. How does he pull up?
He just is there.
He's just there.
Like,
so
you see movement in the background of the shot, and then all of a sudden,
I think you hear the door open.
Yeah.
You kind of feel movement in the back of the shot, and then
Emma, that's a nice name.
Yeah.
Ooh,
so
who's into names, I wonder.
Rumpel's here. And he's here to collect some money. from Granny, who basically hands him like a rolled up wad of cash. Oh yeah, and then as Granny's asking Emma for her name for the room, she says Emma, and he's like, nice name.
He obviously knows what's going on.
Yeah, he knows, he's in the know. And she kind of, she turns around to look at him. We get a good shot of his face. So now we get to see what he looks like in Storybrooke as like a quote unquote normal man.
This is where I changed my mind on him as a character, because when I saw him in the jail cell, I was like, he's too much. He's too extra. He's too camp. I can't handle it. He's so extra. And then you see him at the end, and I was like, oh no, okay, all right.
Yeah, and he's like a smooth operator.
Yeah. He's a lot more subtle, and I'm like, okay, all right, this guy's got multiple levels.
Oh yeah, we got layers.
He's gonna be manipulating people.
We got layers. Yep. So he collects his money and goes on his way. He says something like, enjoy your stay, to Emma, and then Emma turns back to Granny. Is like, who's that? And Ruby's like looking out the window after him, and she's like, that's Mr. Gold. So that's a fun name for our friend Rumple here, Mr. Gold. And she said he owns this place, and Emma said, what, the inn? And Granny says, no, the town. And you go, okay.
And I'm like, how did Rumple Bumple get such a sweet deal from the evil witch? Where she's the mayor, but he gets all the money. And I'm like, how did that one work out?
Yeah, there's some juicy backstory there, Camps.
With the queen, if he's able to, run the town effectively.
Yep.
A lot of questions that need to be answered here.
Some good questions. Yeah, I think that is something this pilot does really well. Raises a lot of good questions. Yeah. Particularly if you're paying attention to stuff like that with Rumple/Gold, and if you're paying attention to stuff with Regina, it's raising a lot of cool stuff that's going to get figured out later in the season. Emma takes the key. That is the music key. I mean, there's been music the whole time, but the music kind of starts to swell a little bit, which it's a good soundtrack. Definitely very fairy tale sort of fantasy feeling to it. And yeah, Emma gets the key. We cut to Henry looking out his window at the clock tower. He's just like staring at it. We do a couple cuts back and forth. We show the clock kind of more at a close-up. The minute hand moves one tick. And we cut back to Henry, and he's got just cute little smile on his face. It's so cute. And that's it. That's our pilot. So time has started officially in Storybrooke.
All right, so I got notes.
You got notes. Hit me. We've done it.
So one of the challenges with a pilot, especially with an ensemble cast, is how do you introduce all the key characters?
Yes.
And do it quickly.
Yeah.
Where you get the information that you need. Yeah. And goddamn, did this show knock it out of the park.
Dude, I'm so glad you brought it out, because that is exactly one of the things I wrote too, is we are introducing at the minimum 6 key characters in this pilot, which would be Snow, Charming, Emma, Henry, Regina, and Gold.
Yeah. And not only do you have to introduce them, figure out what their character traits are, figure out what their motivations are, but you also have to get the audience to either root for them or root against them. You have to give us a reason to give a shit about these characters. And this show does such a good job. I think I wrote down...
So good.
For so many of them, what an entrance.
Yes.
Because the evil queen walking in on the wedding.
So good.
What an entrance.
So good. The doors open.
Rumple Bumple jumping down from the ceiling.
Dropping down from the ceiling.
What an entrance. Emma in her tight little dress, kicking ass, speed walking in her stilettos. What an entrance. Henry just being like, I'm a little kid, but I know how to do all this stuff.
Yeah, but I'm on a bus.
Yes. Just a great job of
the charming intro ride.
Yeah,
Lord of the Rings style
of show don't tell. Cramming a ton of information you need about the characters.
Yes.
And just a few actions or a few throwaway lines that they have.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Very well done.
Truly well executed.
Yes.
Like insane. And like the amount of times that we were just going through this and I said, now we're back in Enchanted Forest. Now we're back in the real world. Now we're in Storybrooke. Now the curse is coming. Like, it's so much.
Yeah.
It does
a lot of cross-cutting back and forth, but it's done in a very smooth way. And that brings me to sort of my next point.
Yeah.
Which is what can be really challenging with specifically fantasies and sci-fi is exposition dumping.
Yep.
Whereas we have to get you into this fantasy world,
right,
and we're just going to tell you everything that you need to know.
Yeah.
And it's going to be very boring and very dry.
Yeah.
And some of the ways to do that are like text, so like the opening text in this episode, or like Star Wars,
which we had a little bit of it.
You get a little bit of it,
just a taste.
But it's just at the very opening.
It's tasteful
scenes.
Yeah.
So it's well done. It's subtle. And then the other way that this can go very wrong is when characters just explain and word vomit.
Right.
And that doesn't happen
at all.
No,
none.
You get
Zero.
all the information you need just through the dialogue and through the cross cutting.
Yeah.
And I'm like
the transitions. Yeah. It's choice.
Very well done.
It's really choice. And yeah, and I think it is also helped by the fact that we are all sort of familiar with these characters to some extent. Like we all know who Snow White is. We all know Prince Charming. We all know the Evil Queen. But that being said, like you establish pretty quickly that these are different versions.
Well, because you're not coming into the show to rewatch Snow White. You're coming into the show to have your expectations subverted because you know it's going to be a different kind of retelling.
What else do I got?
Yeah,
you keep going.
Yeah, so then I have the ending moments, the final hook, which is like, do you want to come back and keep watching this show?
Right.
Right, because that's ultimately what a pilot should do.
Yep.
Is hook you,
keep you coming.
Yeah, and I have to say the ending shot with the clock moving forward, very good touch. Like that is the perfect shot to end on. Yeah, of signifying, no, this magic's real, this prophecy's real.
Yep,
the story is moving forward now.
Yep. We're about like, guess what? Buckle up. We're about to get into it. Yep.
Yes, which I love. The why is the prince still alive? Question. What's he doing in a coma?
His deal?
Why
What's
is he
happening?
Still here? Why didn't the queen just do away with him?
Good question.
Because she could have.
Yeah, I think there's a big, and this I kind of alluded to this before. There's such kind of a general big question around why didn't she just kill everybody?
Yeah.
Like, why didn't she just she's killed people. We learn later that she has killed people. Why didn't she just straight up murder them?
Why was this her choice of her happy ending? Yeah. Which you get the vibe that it's not quite her happy ending.
Right. She thought it was.
She thought it would be.
When you're in that scene with her and Snow and the curse is coming and she's like in the room, she is utterly convinced that she has won at that point, and that the curse is like her salvation, and guess what, y'all are coming with me, and it's gonna suck for you but it's not gonna suck for me. We're getting into that.
And then I think the question of like who is in the know, which I put
who
down.
Knows?
Rumple Bumple has to be. He has to be in the know since he runs the town. But like, is anybody else in the know? Does is it just the witch? Did she bring any of her evil henchmen with her?
She's a queen.
You gotta wonder.
Yeah.
And then the final question too of like, will Emma rise to the occasion? Will she be the hero that they're predicting her to be?
Will she believe in what's happening?
Is she actually gonna break this curse? Is this prophecy real?
Yeah.
Or did Rumple Bumple just make it up on the spot?
Right.
And it's gonna be a self-fulfilling one?
Mm-hmm.
And I think I had a note, sorry, this is kind of out of order, but I made the comment earlier too about like Emma and why I like her cynicism.
Yes.
Is because she is like a very good conduit, if that's the right word.
Yes.
For the audience, right?
Yeah,
she's the fish out of water character who's being dropped into this world.
Yep, she's us.
Yes. And I love her cynicism and her attitude, but just a touch of, I'm still going to kind of believe in magic.
Right.
Why else would she blow out a candle on her birthday?
I like that.
Yeah. So I overall, very well done.
Yeah.
Fantastic pilot. Those are my notes.
I'm so glad you liked it. Yeah. Let me go through a little bit of my stuff. It's just so much fun. Yes. Like, you have a great time. Like you said, we do so much. We introduce all the characters. None of it feels forced. None of it feels boring. Like, not a second of dead, screen time. I like this era of visual effects. To be honest, I like it when it's like a little cheesy, when it's a little bit like you're watching something that's not real. I don't know. I enjoy it. It's like that for me with early Doctor Who as well.
Yeah, I get
a kick out of it.
The corniness is part of the charm.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm into that. That said, I think the effects are pretty decent in this pilot, especially. And it's 2011, y'all. Like, it was pretty good for 2011. And a primetime network show.
Not like a streaming show.
Yeah,
that gets
not like a streaming show or
millions of dollars of budget.
Yeah, or like a I guess in this time period, sci-fi shows were pretty cheesy too. But anyway, moving on. I like the effects. I love the costumes. I love all the costumes so much. I will say in this episode in particular, Snow's hair bothered me a lot in the wedding scene. I'm like, why does your hair look like a bird's nest? I see where we're going with all the bird motifs. But like, did your hair have to look like a bird's nest?
There was, I think, Snow's hair in the opening and then Granny's hair at the end. I'm like, these are wigs.
Yeah, I don't know if they
were the only times,
I guess they were
like,
probably wigs. Yeah.
I get what they're going for, but
I mean, it does give you like a big old contrast between the styling of, you know, the fairy tale land and then Storybrooke styling, especially with Snow White in particular, since she does have the pixie cut in Storybrooke. But yeah, I love the costumes in general. Everybody looks fabulous. I love the Evil Queen's opening costume when she first rolls in the church.
Great. Yeah.
The like high ponytail thing with like the headpiece that's like black bejeweled. I don't even know. Leather pants, like long flowing cape. I think it's a cape.
You have to have a cape.
Yeah, she swishes that thing around, man. She's like, yeah, she does the speed ramp walk thing down the aisle, but then she's kind of like stalking around in front of them in this outfit, you know. It's just so good. And then Charming's outfit that he first rolls in with in the red is really good. And honestly, to be honest with y'all, there are times in this show when I'm just holding on by the costumes. Like, I am solely watching so that I can see the costumes. Like, if you listen to our intro episode, I was talking about how I'm currently getting back into the show. I'm now finally on season 6, and I barely held on through season 5, y'all. Like, there were moments where it was so bad, but the costumes were still great, so at least there was that.
Just had to power through.
Just truly had to power through. Yeah, similar to what you said about Emma, I said, yeah, she's #relatable with all of this Storybrooke BS. Mm-hmm. Henry's the cutest. He's such a cute little bean. And you literally get to see that child grow up throughout this show.
Like,
he is a literal 10-year-old in this pilot. By the time the show ends, he's 17 or 18 years old. So it is kind of a coming of age story for him. Yeah, I wrote Regina's a bitch, but my God, she looks good doing it.
I mean, bars.
It's facts. Did you have a rating for this episode?
I forgot to think of one.
That's okay.
Do you want
me to give you mine first?
Yes.
Okay. I'm gonna give this episode 1 out of 1 unsubtle bowls of apples in Regina Mills's study. Just pan down to a big old bowl of red delicious apples.
Okay, yeah. I gotta think of one. You gotta give me a second.
Yeah, for sure.
I completely forgot about this. I got it.
You got it?
I got it. My rating for this episode is 2 very sweet looking red leather jackets.
2 out of 2 red leather jackets.
Very sweet looking.
Yeah,
red
baby.
Leather jackets.
That is the correct answer, I think. Yeah. Yeah, so we got 1 bowl of apples and 2 out of 2 red leather jackets.
I'm pretty sure that's a wonderful endorsement.
Yeah.
Well, doesn't the prince kind of have... I guess it's not technically a red leather jacket.
It's not... Yeah, we could just say red jackets.
All right.
Yeah.
2 for 2 on sweet red jackets.
Boss red jackets. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and that red jacket, that's Emma's uniform. Like, that's her kind of iconic look. She does wear a lot of different leather jackets throughout the show, but that's kind of the one we always come back to.
All right, y'all. So this is Editing Kampy jumping in. Yeah, the episode ran way later than we thought it would, so we decided to split this up into 2 parts. So stick around. Next week, we'll come out with part 2, Once Upon a Time, the season finale for season 1. Stick around, y'all. Thanks for listening to this episode of The Show Off. If you enjoyed this one, go ahead and leave us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcast and give us your review of our episode pick for this week's pod. You can also email us at theshowoffpod@gmail.com. See you all next week.